Good afternoon. Very pleased to welcome Mr. Mauricio Zuazua from Kearney, partner at Kearney. Thank you very much for hosting us here at your office in Dubai. We're here to discuss electric vehicles, electric mobility as a whole, and mobility as a whole. We were at the Electric Vehicle Innovation Summit in Abu Dhabi earlier this week. How do you foresee the whole sector in the GCC and the broader Middle East?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, and welcome. Listen, I think that the opportunity is large for the GCC. We're starting from a low base. Still, the number of vehicles that are circulating is a nascent industry. However, the speed of growth, the speed of investment, the enthusiasm that I see of OEMs for the region, the traditional ones that are making the switch and the pure electric ones, Tesla, Lucid, BYD, etc., and the dealers are all paying a lot of attention and really putting money into it.
We're not seeing many options, many models, electric vehicles like other parts of the world. Why is that? Although the Middle East is quite a modern market and open market.
Yeah, certainly. It's about entry of multiple brands. So we have about 50 models in the GCC.
But compared to the rest of the world, that's very minimal.
Yeah, it's very small. I mean, China would have 350, 400 or something in that order. I think it's going to grow pretty fast. We need to also understand the size of this market versus a size of the market like in China or the US.
Yes.
So it's taking a little bit. But the big challenge goes connected to two or three things. First of all, total cost of ownership needs to come down. Electric vehicles are still a luxury item here in the region, so bringing new models that bring the cost down will help on that. Second, the charging infrastructure needs to grow in lockstep with vehicles. We were looking at the numbers, and if the UAE was to fulfill, which I'm sure it will, its commitments to net zero in 2050, that means that by 2030, we need to reduce transport emissions about 14 or 15% of today. That is equivalent to about 600,000 vehicles for the UAE alone. Right now, we're at about 10,000. So that's a 60-time increase. Similarly, the increase of charging infrastructure needs to follow that. So 60 times.
Yeah, but why we are seeing some companies, local companies, are investing with their future mobility companies. We're seeing reluctance among many others. How can we encourage everyone, all stakeholders, to embrace fully today rather than tomorrow electric mobility? Well,
that's a question that we actually debated extensively this week, Sal. And to us, there's a couple of things that are necessary in order for the GCC to take a lead and for everybody to jump in. First of all, there's a realization that original equipment manufacturers have that the auto industry is no longer about auto only, right? It's also about charging. It's also about financial mechanisms to bring the cost down. It's about battery recycling. It's about the end-to-end supply chain, value chain of auto ownership. The second thing that needs to happen is there's a great opportunity in this particular part of the world, is leapfrogging in policy. So we don't need to. We would worry about emissions regulation for ICE vehicles. Let's jump to electric, leapfrog all the way, and create incentives for electric and disincentives for ICE vehicles, like we see around the world. The third thing, which actually directly addresses your question, is something we're calling the great collaboration. We're capitalists.
Yes.
We believe in competition.
Yes.
Automakers, dealers need to compete with variety of product, range, beauty, attractiveness, and all of that. but they need to collaborate. We all need to collaborate in other things, like in charging infrastructure. We need to collaborate.
But we're seeing so many charging stations, and don't forget, in the Middle East, especially UAE, many people live in houses, in villas with charging facilities at home.
Yeah, the majority actually of the chargers, in absolute numbers, are private, privately owned, either in villas or in private developments. However, about 15% of chargers, typically around the world, are public. So if we got to the number that we were talking about, 600,000 vehicles, we estimate that you would need 60,000 chargers. We're at about 1,000 right now. And so yes, chargers have been coming up, but we still need to do much more.
Okay. Green financing for in the electric. How do you foresee the appetite for green investment in the mobility sector?
I was in a conversation with a private equity recently, and what they were telling me is, and what we're seeing across our clients, is that investors are shying away from investments that do not have an ESG compliant target. So I think that the appetite is big. I would say that the electric vehicle industry is ripe for growth, ripe for investment. 70% growth in Latin America, 40% growth here, 30% growth, 25% growth in Europe, and so forth. So the number of vehicles charging, and let's not forget about, we're not only talking about passenger vehicles, we're talking about transition also of the transport, medium duty and heavy duty
light
vehicles.
commercial vehicles.
So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. There was a few MOUs signed this week.
Absolutely. We're seeing many top joint ventures or actually projects to manufacture locally electric vehicles. We have Seer, we have Lucid, we have also in Turkey. How do you foresee this model across the region for other markets, including UAE and Egypt?
It's
or Morocco even.
Yeah, so the electric vehicle value chain is a lot simpler than the internal combustion engine value chain. And the internal combustion engine, in the 100 years that it's lived, certain countries and OEMs have really gotten to the perfect, call it, efficiency of value chains, of supply chains. And so it's very difficult to compete with thin margins, with established players for these countries. I believe that countries in the Gulf, countries in Northern Africa have a significant opportunity to capture some of these value chains of electric vehicles. One thing that I would submit is that battery recycling, reuse, repurposing, re-engineering, the Gulf can be a global hub for that. In the middle of global north, global south.
But there is, for example, there is one player in UAE already that exists for battery recycling, such as Enviroserve and all this. So do you think that there's opportunity is huge for that sector segment?
I mean, they have opportunity for growth, but also other players can come in.
Yes, across the entire region.
By 2040, there's going to be about 1.5, 1.7 terawatt hour capacity of batteries that are coming to the end of their life. And we need to do something with those batteries. So repurposing all that will take a whole industry.
What about hydrogen amid all the basically doubts that we have just recently been hearing?
We believe that hydrogen has a big opportunity. Green hydrogen, right? This part of the world, blessed with sun, has a big role to play. And investments have started to trickle in. However, the size of the investments versus the size of the need for applications such as aviation, shipping, fertilizers, other manufacturing processes of steel and so forth, it's very far away. So we do see that growth happening, but we don't see it as a solution for passenger vehicles. perhaps even for heavy-duty vehicles. So we'll see probably coexistence of hydrogen for heavy-duty vehicles and electric for a period of time. But a battery has already won when it comes to passenger vehicles.
Mauricio, thank you very much for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you
you
so much.